So, we will be discussing about the lymphatic drainage of the stomach. Before starting the discussion about the lymphatic drainage of the stomach, let us first see a few important points regarding the lymphatic drainage in the body. First is we have to remember that lymphatics are actually auxiliary to the venous system. So the fluid which is present in the tissue spaces and is not carried by the venous system is actually carried by the lymphatics and ultimately drains into the venous system in the veins before they drain in the or before they reach the heart. Lymphatics everywhere in the body start as blind tubes, unlike the arteries and the veins. Third is the lymphatic channels are present throughout the body and they are intercepted by a number of lymph nodes in their path. So suppose this is a lymphatic radicle which has started as a blind tube from the tissue space. It will reach a lymph node. So if this is the lymph node number 1, lymph node number 2, lymph node number 3 and so on. So we see the lymphatics which are draining in the lymph node 1 are called its efferents. And the efferent channel leaves the lymph node carrying the filtered lymph from lymph node 1. Again, this efferent of the lymph node 1 will reach the lymph node 2, but here it will be called afferent to the lymph node 2. The one leaving the lymph node 2 will be called its efferent, and so on. So the efferent of lymph node 2 will become the afferent of lymph node 3 and the one leaving the lymph node 3 will be its efferent. Now with this knowledge, let us start the lymphatic drainage of the stomach. So if we see the structure of the stomach, the microstructure of the stomach, we see that the stomach wall has 4 coats. Outside it is covered by peritoneum. So the outermost coat is called the serous coat, which is present on both its anterior and the posterior surface. Beneath the serous coat there is muscular coat. The muscles of the stomach are arranged in 3 layers: the outer longitudinal muscles, the inner circular muscles, and then there is a third type of muscle in the stomach called the oblique muscle. So this is the muscular coat. Inside the muscular coat there is a submucosal coat where the vessels, nerves and sometimes glands and lymphatics are all present. So this third coat is the submucosal coat. Further inside is the mucous membrane. Now mucous membrane is lined by the epithelium, which is columnar in case of the stomach, and this is the epithelium has turned inwards to form the gastric glands. So epithelium over here is the columnar epithelium. Lining the mucous membrane, and this part is the lumen of the stomach. Then there is lamina propria, which is another connective tissue layer present within the wall of the stomach, and further out there is muscularis mucosae, which is the muscle layer of the mucous membrane and is different from the muscular coat. Now if we see the lymphatics, they arise as blind tubes from by the sides of the gastric glands, and hence they are called periglandular radicals of lymphatics. Once arising from there, these lymphatics, they give afferents which reach the submucosal coat and form submucosal plexus of lymphatics. From here, the efferents, they reach the muscle coat and form intramuscular plexus of lymphatics. From here, the efferents reach the subserous layer and form subserous plexus of lymphatics. So hence we see 3 plexuses are formed by the lymphatics within the wall of the stomach, both anterior and posterior. From inside out, submucosal plexus, intramuscular plexus and subserosal plexus. Now the lymphatics have reached the outer surface of the stomach, either anterior surface or posterior surface, beneath the peritoneum. So now we see, if this is the stomach, this is the cardiac end, the fundus, this is the lesser curvature, the pyloric part, so if this is the stomach, then we see that if from the cardiac notch we draw a vertical line dividing the stomach into 2 parts, left and the right part. Now this vertical imaginary line which we have drawn over here from the cardiac notch is called the watershed line. Now what is a watershed line? All of us have at least once in our life, drawn this picture. This is the picture of a hut with the sloping roofs. So what happens if rainwater falls on this point, or if you see the side profile of the roof on this line of the roof, what will happen? Water will be diverted either to the right side or the left side. It will not stay on this line. So this line is called the watershed line. Now in body we see that there are a few watershed lines, and these lines, this watershed line, we use this term with respect to the lymphatic drainage. So what we mean by this watershed line in the stomach over here is that along this line no lymphatics will be present, or no lymphatics are going to cross each other. From this line, the lymphatics which are present right to this watershed line, they will all drain in the lymph nodes present along the lesser curvature of the stomach within the lesser omentum, and the lymphatics which are draining the left part of the stomach, both the anterior posterior surface, they will drain towards the greater curvature and will drain in the lymph nodes present over there. So if we see that most of the lymphatics from the left side of this watershed line will go and drain in the group of lymph nodes which are called pancreatico-splenic group of lymph nodes. From the right side, we divide it into 2 parts. upper 2/3 and the lower 1/3. From upper 2/3 of the right part of the watershed line, the lymphatics drain in the left gastric group of lymph nodes, and those from the lower 1/3 they drain in right gastroepiploic group of lymph nodes. From the pylorus of the stomach, the lymphatics can drain either in the left gastric group of lymph node, or they can drain in the hepatic group of lymph nodes, or they can drain into the pyloric group of lymph nodes. Now all these lymph nodes, so they are getting their afferents from the subserous plexus, and efferents from these group of lymph nodes, from the pancreaticosplenic, the left gastric, the right gastroepiploic, hepatic and pyloric, they all drain in the celiac group of lymph nodes. Now where are these celiac group of lymph nodes are present? Celiac group of lymph nodes are present around the celiac artery, which is present in celiac trunk, which is present in front of the abdominal aorta. So in these celiac group of lymph nodes, the efferents from these lymph nodes will drain. So these will form the afferents of the celiac group of lymph nodes, and from the celiac group of lymph nodes, the efferents will join with the efferents coming from other lymph nodes and form cisterna chyli. This cisterna chyli continues in the thorax as thoracic duct, which drains at the junction of left subclavian and left internal jugular vein in the neck. This thoracic duct drains most of the lymphatics of the body, except for those coming from the right half of the thorax and right upper limb. Those lymphatics, they go to the right lymphatic duct, which drains at the junction of right subclavian and right internal jugular veins. So this was all about the lymphatic drainage of the stomach. But there is a question which you get in your exams, and the question is, why carcinoma of stomach spreads to esophagus and not to duodenum? Reason being, first, the lymphatics of the stomach are continuous with the lymphatics of the esophagus, but the lymphatics of stomach are not continuous with the lymphatics of the duodenum. And second important reason is, at the cardiac end, the circular muscle of the stomach is continuous with that of the esophagus. So there is no anatomical sphincter present at the cardiac end, whereas at the pyloric end, the circular muscle of the pylorus thickens to form an anatomical sphincter, which also gets few fibers from the longitudinal muscles of the pylorus. So there is an anatomical discontinuity between the pyloric end of the stomach and the duodenum. So these are the two reasons why carcinoma of stomach does not spread to duodenum, but it spreads to the esophagus. So this was about the lymphatic drainage of the stomach.